Logic and emotion, two things that often don't really hang out with each other. I would say part of my experience as a relationship coach is helping people distinguish between what seems logical and what is being governed by emotion. Another way we could say this is, are we choosing love or fear? You know, when we're in love with someone, when we're infatuated with someone, we're excited about with someone, when we're scared someone's going to hurt us, emotions are running rampant. There's so many different emotions that are coming up that are often dictating our decisions, and logic goes right out the window. That's why so many of us do things in relationships that we're like, how could I possibly have done that? How could I have put up with that person for so long? Why didn't I just say how I felt? Well, because you were in a heightened state of emotion that was likely being triggered by past responses and past fear experiences in your childhood or upbringing. And so those are just being reflected into the future and thus governing the choices that we make and don't make. So I just had a couple coaching calls where we were really working on that, where two people were sharing what they saw was so illogical for them to do those things, but could really understand, have compassion for themselves that they were just in a heightened state of emotion. Right? And this is where it's like personal development should never feel like it's obligated, like you should do it, because that just creates resistance and righteousness. It's more so like an opportunity to discover how well we can influence our life and our relationships. And so where logic and emotion comes in is we need both of those things. They're actually both very necessary. I think what personal development's all about is helping people decipher whether or not this is fear-based emotion or genuine desire, or it's logic that's this thing that I'm just trying to be right about, or am I moving in a way that actually has integrity for me? You can see how easily those things can get complicated and confusing. So part of what we do in coaching is we help iron them out. We make things clear so that the actions seem very feasible and attainable to make the difference. So I'm going to stay on here for a little bit. I just want to talk about logic and emotion because it was just so rampant in our last few coaching calls. But I would love to stay on here and do some Q&A. So if you got any questions, just put them in the question box or put them in the comments, and I'll stay on here and answer some questions. But it's really just this thing I wanted to bring up around, you know, having space for both things, logic and emotion. Some of us are overly emotional. Some of us are overly logical. We actually really need both things. The question is, can we practice distinguishing where we're giving too much power to one of those things? You know, am I getting clingy or losing my temper in relationships? Am I shutting down or pulling away? Likely most of those things are not in balance, therefore heightened sense of emotions are taking the steering wheel. Or logical, am I trying to go on 50 dates and then once I do 50 dates, then I'll meet my match and it's just pure arithmetic. It's like, well, where's the love? Where's the chemistry? Where's the, joy in that experience? Like, that's not going to work. So how do we actually have those things do what they're meant to do, which is help us be bold and courageous while also keeping us relatively safe? There's going to be a risk in love. There is no love without risk. But how do I mitigate that when I've had a past where I've taken these risks and they've really freaking hurt? There's where the work begins. Are we going to be governed by our past fears, or are we going to, practice new levels of courage to create a new future? I know which one I'm more excited about, but it really, it takes some looking, it takes some discovery to actually see what's going on. So let's check in the questions. How do I keep no contact when I'm afraid we'll never talk again? I love her. Yeah, oh my gosh, isn't that like the biggest motivator to reach out? It's like, will I ever talk to this person again? What if I don't? I got to reach out to them. Well, I would start to picture, that's one future, that you may never talk to her again. Yeah, that is a possibility. What's another future of breaking that no contact? So you set this out for a reason, right? Kind of like you broke up for a reason. Now, whenever people break up, it's so normal and common to put on those rose-tinted glasses and start to reminisce about the good times and start to convince ourselves of how we think we could fix it or work it out. Fair enough. But do any of those things actually change the reason you broke up? If they didn't, then that's going to be some strong motivation to stay your course. All right? There's nothing wrong with reaching out if you're actually addressing the problem that you guys had. If you're not, then it's just countdown till that problem comes up again. So I invite you to consider that future as well when you're in this balancing act of whether to reach out or not. All right, what other questions do we got? Stoicism helps, but it's a philosophy that is hard to constantly keep in line. Yeah, Brandon, Stoicism can be a really great thing, but also it's like we want to be careful when we move too far into emotionalness, like you said, right? Can I be stoic but also be connected to my heart? Where is the sweet spot in that? And I think that's what a lot of us are missing. We've got things like cancel culture. We've got things like people, oh, I'm in a fight with my partner. Quick, let me put my camera on so I can record it and share this later. It's like, that's so inauthentic and fake. And so we're kind of playing with too many extremes rather than looking to play in that sweet spot, which is really almost always what I'm talking about, all my content. What is that sweet spot for you of love and fear? What is that sweet spot of being in communication but also being reserved? What is that sweet spot of logic and emotion working together? And the challenge with this kind of, I think my kind of content is it's going to take some looking for you. It's not so obvious. That's why I think a lot of people like content from people who say, if she does this, then it means that. And it's like, it's perfectly laid out and it's all in a nice little box, but it's bullshit because it's an assumption. It's a generalization. And if you're going to walk through your life with generalizations, well, I invite you to paint the picture of all the other things you could generalize about. Your income, where you live, your health. Life's going to look pretty bleak if you live from generalizations. I personally don't think I live a general life or an average life, nor do I want to. I don't think anybody who follows me does want that. You want to excel or, reach a higher state of potential or grow emotionally. Those things are not average. They're not general. So I wouldn't recommend listening to people who speak generally. Scrolling. Your clips help me understand relationships better. I'm so happy, Diego. That is exactly my goal. If someone was emotional and used to share everything, but after some incidents he changed, now he's just the opposite. He doesn't share his feelings, but he feels it in heart, then what do I do? Well, I would get curious and subtle. Okay, if someone used to share a lot and now they've shut down, something obviously happened. It's not out of the blue. What actually happened might not be clear. So I would start to get curious about that person. But if you push, it's very challenging for people to open up when they feel like they're being pushed, right? You might not actually be pushing them, but it's like, can you look at what are some gentle things that you can ask about to start a conversation? And if that conversation even just gets started a little bit, consider that a win. If you can ask questions like, hey, I'm curious about how you're feeling about this, and they share a little bit, that's a win. You don't have to go further than that. Okay, the next day, bring it up. The next week, bring it up, and let it be something that builds. That's another thing I want to promote more of. Building relationships, not finding relationships. Build them. Create them. Too many of us are like, I'm going to go find someone perfect, or you can treat me like shit and I'll put up with it. It's like, no, there's things to work on and build together. My relationship with my wife is crafted. It's not found. And it's better than any relationship I've ever thought I could have. But it took something. It wasn't like, there she is under that rock, So this is a practice. So I hear you have the opportunity to get curious with this person. Is there really any logic when you're so in love with the person? Well, logic tends to disappear pretty quickly when we're in love with someone. Tends to go right out the window and we start to do things we wouldn't normally do, start to maybe say yes when we want to say no. Maybe we don't stand up for ourselves when we notice a behavior we don't like because we're in love and we should just accept it. Yeah, that's going to bite us in the ass down the road. But this is where, to me, being in love is the easy part. To me, a relationship doesn't happen when you're in love. It happens when the honeymoon stage is over. and you start to be yourself a little more, and everyone stops to be so agreeable and on their best behavior and wearing their nicest clothes and their freshest outfits, whatever, then you start to go, okay, this is who we really are. Do I still, are we going to commit to each other now? There's not much commitment when I'm in love. It's just chemistry and emotion and, all that physiology going on. And it's wonderful. It's not a bad thing. It's beautiful. It's what attracts us to each other. Emotion of fear, when we think of them with someone else, is that something I can get over? Yeah, so you got this emotion when you think of that person with someone else. Yeah, I get that. I mean, that's a painful thought. You've been intimate with someone, maybe you had a deep relationship with them, and then you picture them doing that with someone else. It can be heartbreaking. It can really hurt to think about that. I think this is where, we do have more power over our thoughts than we think, but that is a trained skill. So we can train ourselves to focus on certain things. There's actually choice involved with that. So many of us think we're just kind of stuck, that our thoughts are just hitting us. And, that might be the case sometimes, but we can look at how much attention we give those thoughts. So it's understandable that you're going to have pain when you think about that person with someone else. And, I invite you to start to focus on what you're up to. What are you creating? What's the future that you're excited about? Because while you're focusing on them with someone else, you're not focused on that future you're creating. And that's going to take care of itself. When you start focusing on where you want to be and how you want to feel, then the rest just falls by the wayside a lot more naturally. It's hard for me to worry about, other professions, for example, when I'm, clearly working on my craft, focused on what I'm doing and what I'm up to. So that'd be my invitation for you. Time to release the relationship that's stuck in a constant loop of conflict based on clashing emotional logic. How do you know? The question is, how do you know it's time to release? Well, you want to create a clear result that you're out for what it would look like to have the relationship work. Something I see very commonly in my coaching is many people are not well practiced in actually saying what they want. A lot of us really struggle with saying, how would I like it to go? So instead we say all the things that we don't want, which is important, but it also doesn't really give us a clear path forward. And so how do you know whether it's kind of make or break with someone? Well, first, before you even answer that question, I invite you to answer the question of how would you like it to go with that person? Have you shared that clearly with them? Do they know what that would take, and do you know what that would take? If that's the case and you both are willing to take that on, well, then stick it out, work it out together. But if it's not the case and you're not clearly articulating what you want, then it's going to be a bit of a headache and tough going for a while. So answer this question first of, what would it actually look like to have the relationship work the way you're intending it to? And see if you're both open to taking that on. Juan, good to see you, man. Got back with your ex, having issues with your self-sabotaging in the relationship again. Yeah, well, get specific. What do you mean by that? What are you self-sabotaging? What are you being run by? Okay, start to look at that. There's going to be, when you get back with an ex, my wife and I, we were engaged, we broke up, and we got back together, then got engaged again, then got married, then had a baby. Now, when we got back together, we totally worked on what our challenge was, and we just came out super strong. But we were very tempted to go back to old ways. Very tempted to start to say the same kind of phrases that would trigger each other. And it's okay, what's going on here? This is really going to take some discipline, some self-control, because we're just doing what is our default pattern versus creating the relationship, getting responsible for the relationship. So one, time to look at where you can be responsible for the direction you're looking to create. Okay, what is there to acknowledge? You might be operating from some of those past things because you're pretending something from the past that isn't actually happening now. Hopefully that offers a doorway for you to look at. Now again, you guys, I'm always offering, some maybe some tips or some direction for you to look at, but nothing will be as powerful as actually getting relationship coaching. Okay, some of you are watching my stories or you're watching other people's stuff and you're hoping that's going to have dramatic impact in your life. I hope there's going to be some great insights and you're going to have some growth from it. But the idea that it's going to transform your life, I don't see that. This is where I encourage coaching. I encourage actual live participation. So that's something I really encourage you to look at. That might be a big breakthrough action for you in terms of your relationship growth. Another one here. How can I identify when I'm not using my logic because my emotions normally fog my vision when I'm in that love rush state? Yeah, so the way we do it in my coaching is we establish the context that every choice we make is either stemming from love or from fear. Okay, from love and fear. Look at everything that you do. It's either coming from love or from fear. The challenge is some of those fear-based choices are kind of camouflaged. Like it seems like a good idea. For example, let's say you're over-accommodating for someone. You want to say no to something, they're doing something you don't like, but you're worried that they're going to judge you or not like you, so you over-accommodate. Now that seems like it's coming from love, right? I'm doing something good for somebody. It's like, no, that's coming from a fear that I'm going to get rejected. So this is where the skill comes in. Can I actually differentiate and recognize that? So I would invite you to pass whatever you're dealing with through that filter. Am I acting from love right now? Or is this some kind of covert fear mechanism, compensation that's running the show? Hopefully that's a good starting point for you. All right, I'll check in to see if there are any more questions. Where does a person start to expand their experience in relationship with others? I mean, of course, being in relationships is one, and my obvious answer that you probably could have guessed is relationship coaching. I put people in situations in relationship coaching that has them drastically and profoundly grow in a quick vacuum space. So that is one of the best places to do it, so you actually have a structure for growth. That's what I recommend. I've been getting coaching for 11 years in a variety of different areas. I'm never going to stop because every time I do get coaching, I discover a new blind spot about myself. I discover some way I'm getting in my own way, and somehow I get freed from that. And next thing you know, my life improves in some direction that I wanted it to. I believe there's a never-ending amount of those opportunities. And that's why I take on this road. Scrolling. Next question. I look in the question box to see if people have ready questions, but I know some people do it in the comments, so I'm just scrolling in the comments. Joseph's asking, is asking about interests and their idea of purpose too complicated for the first day interaction? I personally, this is where it's like you're asking my personal opinion, and this could be differing for different people, right? So maybe you meet someone and you do that and they like that. And that's what has you like each other. So that's where it's like you want to trust your own intuition. For me, as someone who's a recovering anxious attacher, what I find when I ask questions like you're asking, like, what's your idea of purpose? What are you interested in? I find that's coming from me trying to control, me trying to learn things really quickly, me trying to rush. And so for me, I think my best route is to slow things down, to let it kind of evolve and let it grow and keep it gentle and light. Now that's for me because I'm in someone in the past who's been more serious. So if that's not you, that advice might not be effective for you. But that's my 2 cents on that. I'm scrolling again. My ex broke no contact last week. She wanted her Duna back. I don't know what a Duna is. And it stirred a lot of emotions in me. It feels like it set me back. Any tips on building myself up? Yeah, so if your ex broke your no contact, you want to look that you got some responsibility in there in that you have a choice to receive that contact or not. Okay, so that's one thing. There might be some boundary to put in place there. The other thing to look at is what assumptions did you automatically jump to when they broke no contact? And I got a feeling there's probably some assumptions about what does this mean for us or what did I assuming could be different. So you want to look and see if you can separate, is what I'm assuming the truth or is it simply an assumption? Okay, that's one part. The next part is, what am I committed to? Again, someone asked questions before. I broke up for a reason. So what am I committed to? What's the direction I want to head? Okay, what is one action I can take this week that's aligned with that direction? I really believe in simplifying. Don't make yourself try to change your life today. We want to build on the certain kind of habits and ways of thinking that just create a healthy relationships and successful life. So my tip would be, think of one thing this week that would support the future that you're out for, okay? And see if you can let go of one assumption you made about this person breaking the no contact. Scrolling. What if there wasn't a honeymoon stage, long distance relationship? Well, I still think you can have a honeymoon stage in a long distance relationship. I'm not sure the question. What's your question about that? You don't need a honeymoon stage. I've been in long distance relationships. They can work. They can be excruciatingly challenging. It really depends on the agreements you've created with each other. The consistent dynamic that you're creating together. I think that's paramount in long distance relationships working, that you know about each other's workplace, daily life. Like, you're not sharing the coffee with them at the coffee shop, so how do they get to be involved somehow? That's where, there's a certain level of expectation and agreements necessary for the success there. How do you keep hope something will work out, but still live your life? I'm trying to understand your question. How do you keep hope that something will work out, but still live your life? Like, you're hoping it'll work with someone? Like, you're hanging on to that something will happen with a particular person? Is that what you mean? This to me is where the logic comes in. It's like, okay, well, I'm hoping something will work out with someone else. What am I cutting myself off from? Your dream partner might have walked past you today, but you didn't even notice them because you were so busy wondering of what could be with this other person that isn't. This is where I come back when I say logic. Are you in a relationship with this person? Well, you're not. So what's hope have to do with it? That's where I kind of get like, I used to do that a lot, like high school, university. Oh, I like this person. Maybe someday, one day, and I'd torture myself. And it never turned into anything because I was staying in kind of like a powerless mindset. I was very powerless to my relationship experience versus like, oh, are you interested in me? No, you're not. Okay, well, I'm not going to keep waiting for that or pushing for that because the relationship that I want to be in is reciprocal. It's both parties want to be in it, I wouldn't want to be with my wife if she didn't want to be with me. There's no value in that. So this is where I think another chunk of people can get kind of hooked on this. Sorry for the shaking. Can get hooked on this, trying to convince people to be ready or be available. That's over there with them. Your work is, what are you doing trying to convince someone to be with you? What is the self-worth gap that's actually allowing you to keep that pace up? That's the growth there. There's always somewhere to look back here. And it can be kind of confronting sometimes for sure, but it's also extraordinarily empowering because it means you can influence so many things in your life. To me, it would be so shitty if it was like, sorry, nobody likes you. You just got to deal with it and hope for the best. It's like, shit, that sucks. But if you can actually recognize that I have a part to play in all of this, well, now you got steps to take that can influence it. And that's, to me, very exciting. Is it possible to fix a toxic relationship? No, because it's toxic. It'd have to be not toxic first. So that's a really broad question you're asking. I'm joking with you because if it's toxic, you got to remove the toxicity first for that to even be an option. But I think what people step over, like, hey, I want to fix this with you. Did you even check in to see if that person is willing and open to fix it? One of the best things that me and my wife do if we're like in a mood is actually ask, are you available to have this conversation right now? And a really responsible thing for me to say when I'm not is, no, I'm actually not open to it. It's like, okay, great. Well, then there's no point in us hashing it out unless both people are actually open and willing to have that conversation. But so many of us skip asking that question because we're afraid if we ask it, they might say no, and we won't know what to do after that. So instead we just talk and talk and talk to someone who's not even listening. It's not going to work. So there's an invitation here to actually ask, what is the person open for? Like that first, because now you've got an actual like permission slip to have the conversation rather than just go at each other. It's hard facing the truth sometimes because it's scary but necessary. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more, Ali. That's why I talk about love over fear and courage, because it's scary. Like if you care about someone, there's something at risk. You know, if you love someone, if you want something bigger for yourself, that's inevitably going to be scary because you're risking something. You know, and I think so many of us are going about this a really ineffective way, which is I'm trying to make sure I'm not scared. It's like, well, then don't care about anything. That's the only way you're going to not be scared. If you care about something, you're going to be scared. I was telling a coaching group last night, I was saying to them, I really, really get scared before my coaching calls because I really want them to go well. I want people to have a great experience every time. And sometimes I get attached to that and I get worried that I'm going to say the right thing or the wrong thing or go off on some tangent. And then I take my deep breaths and I get present to the people I'm talking to. And I recognize that fear is all about me trying to look good. It's like, well, that's not what we're here for. People didn't sign up for coaching for me to look good. They signed up for coaching for them to have a breakthrough in their life, in their relationships. So this coaching can't be about me. It's got to be about them. And all of a sudden we're in the conversation and it goes great anyway. The thing I want to happen happens anyway. But if I'm attached to it, I really kind of hamstring myself, self-sabotage, like Juan was talking about earlier. All right, just a couple more, then I'm going to hop off. What is a healthy balance for logic and emotion in a new potential relationship? We're both scared and hurt from the past, both pessimistic outlook in life. Yeah, okay, well, I acknowledge you for owning that you have a bit of a pessimistic outlook on life. And it sounds like you'd like to change that a little bit. So I believe that incremental changes are so powerful. You don't have to suddenly make yourself optimistic. But what are both of you open for? What could you start to talk about when it comes to love and relationships that would move the needle towards possibility or optimism? Start to have some of those conversations. Give yourself lots of grace. Don't feel like you gotta have big conversations all at once, but just start in the direction of sharing more with each other about each other's desires and fears. You know, a beautiful way to connect with each other is to share what we're scared of. You know, it's a really beautiful way. So many of us are sharing what we're great at and what I'm perfect in life this. It's like, that's actually not very connecting. What's connecting is I'm scared to tell you that I've been thinking about this thing for a while because I've been worried that you're going to judge me for it. And I'm not sure how to bring it up. So this is kind of how I'm starting. It's like, okay, I instantly connect to that person because they're being vulnerable with me. So start with that and see what comes. Healthy balance for love and logic. I couldn't give you like a number amount for that. It's more like you being in the dance of that. And so look at it kind of like a pendulum, like it's going to move. And your job is to check when you've gone too far one side and see if you can recalibrate bit by bit. Not perfect. No one's doing this, you guys. Nobody is doing this, okay? It's always moving. All right, I'll do one or two more and we'll hop off. You guys are so amazing. Thank you for the questions. How can you support someone and their family when a sudden tragedy happens and someone is hurt? I want to give them space, but also let them know I'm here to support them. Love this question. Thank you for asking it. So, I mean, I've had a death in my family. My dad died 5 years ago. My wife, her mom died at a young age as well. And a lot of us don't know how to handle these conversations with people when something tragic happens. I think we tend to do too much of is talk about ourselves, like I'm there for you, and if you need anything, tell me, versus ask questions, which is, what's it like for you right now? You know, not just how are you feeling. They're going to be feeling like shit. What's it like for you right now? Not do you need anything, but, you know, can I pick you up some groceries? Do you need help with the laundry? Like, get specific with people. Because often they probably have a bunch of other people reaching out to them, you know, saying, you know, I'm there for you. And it's like, okay, tell me if you need anything. That just feels overwhelming often for people. Tell me if you need anything. It's like, well, what do you mean by anything? would you come over and clean my room for me? It's like, probably not. Okay, so what do you mean by that? And so you kind of give them a doorway by saying, can I come over and, bring you a plate of stew? Hey, love to talk to you for 20 minutes. Do you want to chat for a quick 20 minutes? It's like now you've given them a kind of yes or no question rather than them having to figure it out because they're already probably overwhelmed with a lot of emotions. Thank you very much for that question. Real brief share. One thing I didn't really know how to navigate when it came to death in a family is when people would say, I'm sorry. It didn't sit right to say that to people. I'm sorry. And I also didn't like hearing it. I'm sorry for your loss. It's like, thank you. Thanks for being sorry that my dad died. Okay, it's weird. It's kind of a weird thing, but so many of us have only seen people say that. So that's typically what we do without real rhyme or reason to it. It's just we don't know what else to do. So I'm going to give you something else you can do. Okay? I saw this in a movie with Bill Murray and some kid. And in the movie, Bill Murray's a real angry, upset guy. Why is he angry and upset? Because his wife's going through Parkinson's. Alzheimer's, one of the two. And he befriends this kid. And his wife dies. And the kid finds out that his wife dies. And he goes to visit him and he says, I'm so sorry for your loss. And Bill Murray goes, why do people say that? I hate that people say that. Why don't they ever say, do you miss them? Or what were they like? And I thought, I don't know why people don't ever say that. It's a real beautiful question. Do you miss them? What were they like? It actually gives the person an opportunity to share about the person that they love, that they miss. And so I tried this out. I used to be a fitness instructor and I was leading some classes for a cancer fundraiser. And so almost everybody in the room had lost someone to cancer. And afterwards we were having snacks and eating and talking with each other. And I thought I'd try this out. And so I started talking to this woman. I was very nervous because, of course, we like to go to our default behavior. I was nervous to say, hey, I'm sorry for your loss, like everybody else was saying. And so instead, I said, so did you lose someone in your life to cancer? She said, I lost my mom. And I said, do you miss her? And she kind of looked at me surprised. She said, so much, every day. And I said, what was she like? And for 10 minutes, she bragged to me about her mom and how wonderful she was and how much she cared about these different qualities that her mom had. And we had such a beautiful conversation. It was like a true celebration of life. And I was like, well, I was blown away. And she was very grateful for it. She said, thank you so much for asking these questions. No one's ever asked me that. Her mom had been dead for 8 years. No one ever asked her, do you miss her? It's like, and I understand why. I didn't even know that was an option until I saw this example in the movie. So that's another thing that you can do. And I think it's a really beautiful connecting thing because people die in our life. That's inevitable. It's going to happen. Someone in your life's going to die. Someone you know who care about someone in their life's going to die. Can you have a conversation with them that's going to be connecting and actually celebrate the mark that that person left on their life versus what so many of us do, which is try to avoid the topic altogether. So thank you for that great question. I really love that question. You know, being someone who's talking about love and relationships and connection, it just matters. It just really matters to go to work on this stuff and to see where we can influence our love and connection. So thank you so much for the questions, you guys. Got a little emotional there and grateful for the opportunity to share with you and grateful for your support on the content. Make sure, don't let it stop there. Okay, really make sure you're setting yourself up with support and structure. Okay, otherwise it's just very easy to fall into our default patterns. All right. I see a bunch of other questions coming in. Sorry guys, I got to hop off. But I'll be back on again probably later this week. Sending you so much love. Bye.